Bandwidth for First Updates Now is supported by the Blue Alliance. Keep up to date on all live and archived First Robotics events and team stats at thebluealliance.com. First Updates Now is brought to you by Twitch. Fun is now a Twitch partner and offering some awesome subscriber-only benefits. Subscribe today or get a free subscription each month when you have Amazon Prime by linking your account and clicking subscribe.
All right, welcome to the pilot episode of Fun's newest show, FUNalysis, where we're here to break down some of the greatest and most relevant matches in FRC. I'm Mason Markee, and joining me, we have the fantastic, the famous, the amazing Karthik, Kanagasabapathy.
Something like that.
Say hi to the crowd.
Hi, crowd.
All right, and joining us as well is the amazing, coming from Andy Mark, Nick Lawrence. Nick, say hello.
Hey, everybody.
All right, guys. This is going to be a lot of fun. This is our first time doing it. We're going to analyze 3 great matches today. They're all coming from the 2017 season. Eventually, we're going to do some great things from other seasons later on in this show in a couple weeks. But right now, we want to highlight what's been going on the most, the latest. We want to see what strategies have paid off and which ones you can learn from to help make your team competitive ready. These guys, my guests here, Karthik and Nick, they've been amazing strategists and firsts for a very long time. They've played on really big fields, myself included, and we're really excited to share with you guys some of the fun things that you can dive deep in inside of these matches to really see it at a different level than just what happens in those 2.5 minutes. We're going to talk a lot about what goes on behind the glass and what goes on to prepare for these matches and the adjustments you have to see in the middle of the match. I want you to put your questions in the chat room here. We're going to be trying to answer those. We want this to be an interactive experience today. And we also have a couple giveaways this evening, thanks to Wordplay All Day. So we're going to bring in Tyler, and he's going to tell you about what you can win tonight.
Hey, thanks, Mason. Tonight's giveaways, we got a couple great ones here once again from Wordplay All Day. We got a 971 magnet from their amazing 2016 robot, which you have an opportunity to win later on. Make sure you do either follow or subscribe to First Updates Now and subs. We got a special giveaway just for you. It is a custom 5x7 robot drawing from Wordplay All Day. Every subscriber is entered regardless if you're here live or not. This is literally, you can pick any robot you want as long as there's a decent picture that Christine can do. She will do it for you. So we thank all the subscribers who make First Updates Now going, and thank you for keeping this network going strong.
Those magnets are awesome. I keep one on my fridge at home at all times. I hope one of you guys out there will be inducted into the club of cool magnets at home. All right. So let's get into the action. Enough talk. Our first match is going to come from Karthik. Remember, put your ideas in the chat. We're going to be talking those at the end. But Karthik, I want you to take this away and lead us off with a bang.
So it was really interesting when Tyler came up to me. He's like, hey, let's do this show. Let's talk about, let's dive into matches. And it's like, you can pick any match from whenever. And I was like, wow, that's a lot of options there. And there's so many great matches over the time, and a lot of matches that have intrigued me. And I love breaking these things down after the fact. But the one match that stood out to me this year was semifinals 1, match number 3 at the McMaster district event. So let's get the setup here. This is a week 6 event in Ontario. And it was about week 4 when the 4-rotor breakthrough happened in Ontario. Actually, the first 3 weeks, it was 4 rotors just wasn't a thing. It wasn't until week 4 when the Waffles and Renaissance Robotics hit it at Waterloo. But by week 6, it was becoming a more and more regular thing. And this event was stacked. At the top of the heap, naturally, was Team 2056. They were the only regularly consistent 40 kPa bot at the regional, and they were the number 1 seed. The rankings broke down really interestingly because there were about 5 robots in that next tier after 2056, including Team 188, 4976, 4039, 4939, 5406. So just a really strong grouping of teams. But in between all of that, Team 4907 was the 2nd seed. So it seemed like we were in a position where 2056 was going to pick whoever they wanted, and then 4907 was going to probably burn teams 4939, 4039, and 5406, who were the 3, 4, and 5 seeds. That made for some interesting dynamics at play. 2056 had to decide who they were picking, and 2056 this year, at this point in the season, was an awesome KPA bot, However, their gearing was above average. They weren't on the same level of like a 610 or a 4939 or some of the other gearbots at this event, but they could definitely support themselves. But no matter what, any alliance they were going to be on at this point in the season, 4 rotors was going to be tough because 2056 was doing about 3 gears a match. Now, they could have the capability of doing more if they didn't do any KPA. So their whole calculus in this was like, we need to pick the best gear scoring robot at the regional. And like I said, 188 was amazing with an intake, while 4939 and 4039 were just great straight line gears, but had no intake. So 2056 kind of said, hey, let's go with the robot with the intake, who's got the ground pickup, consistent auto, and can really do those gears. Now, this is where things got weird, because 4907, everyone thought they were going to burn 4976, 5406, and 4039, and then pick 4939, who was way out of the top 8. And that just, but it didn't happen for whatever reason, whether someone convinced them that burning was not the right thing to do or whatever. 4907 then picked way off the board and picked Team 854, and they got knocked out in the quarters right away. So like that was like iffy. But then some really, really solid alliances formed. 4976 and 5406, and then the alliance that 2056 ends up playing in the semifinal, 4939 and 4039. These 2 robots both won 3 districts this year in Ontario, which was one of the most competitive, if not the most competitive district in, all first. So these guys were both consistent gear sport. They had the robots had the same form factor, and they just kind of buzzed down the field. They actually emitted a similar pitch as they just kind of drove down the field. It was just great watching them rumble cycle to cycle. These guys were averaging in the 4 to 5 range. Those were actual averages and could top out at about 6. And in the second round, they got Team 2386, who was a team that was averaging in the 2 to 3 range and could top out around 4 gears. So 4 rotors seemed like a definite with this alliance. Like these guys could put up so many gears that you had to count on these guys as 4 rotors. And in the quarterfinals, they just blazed to 4 rotors. And I mean, they were hitting at 4 rotors with 45, 50 seconds left in the match. That's huge. 2056 and 188 grabbed 6725 in the second round. 6725 was a nice, consistent gear score. Not nearly as good as any of the 3 of their opponents, but they would get a couple done. So the 2056-188 alliance was, if you add up all their averages, and you're looking at an alliance that's going to be right at the cusp of 4 rotors. So everything has to work out for them to get 4 rotors. However, 2056 was getting 40 kPa every time. So if you go into this match and say, wow, 4939, 4039, 2386, just let's go by colors now so we just don't keep doing numbers. The blue alliance here is going to get to 4 rotors super, super early. We can try and play some D on them, but they're still probably going to get to 4 rotors. We know that they're going to get to 4 rotors. That means we have to get to 4 rotors, is what the 2056 alliance is saying. But they have the bonus of knowing that they're going to get at least 60 extra points in KPA, 40 for the balls, and then 20 for the bonus, and then whatever extra they get on top of that. That's enough to offset 1 hang. And that means that their alliance could go 4 rotors, 40 KPA, and only 2 hangs, and still beat a 4 rotor, 3 hang blue alliance. That's really important because they may need that extra time to get to 4, because they were right on the 12-gear cusp. So that kind of sets the backstory for this match. This was going to be an uphill climb for the Blue Alliance, even though they were really good at getting to 4 rotors, so they had to do something aggressive. And they did. They went with an all-out, they went with a 2+1 strategy, which meant 4939 and 4039 were doing the gear scoring, and 2386 was going to focus on defense. That means they were leaving 11 gears for 4939 and 4039 to do. That's a lot. That is a risk to take, but if it pays off, it means you have 2386 trying to slow down their opponents for the whole match, which could be enough to keep the Red Alliance off of 4 rotors. So, lots of talk, lots of setup. Let's jump right into this match. And this is my first time doing it. And there we go. The match is just about to begin here. So you see right off the bat, 2056 is going to go out and autonomous and shoot. Blue Alliance delivers 2 gears. 188 is going for a 2-gear auto here. They took 6725's gear, but they only get 1. 2056 has a really nice auto here. I'm going to pause it. At the end of auto, 2056 gets themselves at 27 kPa. That means they know they're getting the 40 kPa. In the first match of the semifinals, which 2056 is the Lions lost, they only got about 10 kPa in auto, and then they gave up on kPa and decided just to go straight at 4 rotors. But here there would be no giving up. They know they can. 13 kPa for 2056, that's like a blink of an eye. That's nothing. Blue Alliance out to a quick lead by getting 2 gears in auto, and then 2386 finishes it up with the 3rd gear. That means right now the Blue Alliance only needs 9 more gears in teleop. So right away, their plan is working the way it needed to with a strong autonomous mode. So match starts off, people start doing their cycles. You just watch how quickly 4939 and 4039 get in and out of the loading station. It's really something great to watch. They keep coming down that lane right there. They love that section of the field. So as these two score their first cycles, watch what's happening over here. We got 2386 blocking off the lane. So I'm going to pause right now, and I'm going to take it back just a little bit. And I'm going to clear this and take a look at what 2386 is able to do here. They've got 3 red robots over here, all behind the airship that we can't see, and they've jammed them all up. So this is kind of crazy to think about because 2 things are happening right now. All these red robots are, give me one sec, there we go. Well, maybe not. All these robots in the corner. Sorry, I'm just trying to get the drawing going. Anyways, there's 3 red robots locked up behind the airship, but there's also an open path down. There we go. Pencil. So robots locked up over here, leaving this side of the airship wide open. 2386 does a great job blocking it up. The Red Alliance robots, instead of coming around the back right away, try and force themselves through 2386, while the Blue Alliance robots take advantage of the fact that there's an open field, all this open field, to cut down to speed up their cycles. And so this is a great play by 2386, but it's great coordination. This is a clear example of an alliance having a plan and knowing what to do, while the Red Alliance seems like they're a little flustered by the D by 2386. So let's take it from here. And you can see this slows down 2 red cycles and speeds up a couple blue cycles. So everyone kind of comes out of that, and you see the defense is being of 2386's effect. 2386 is constantly hitting robots. Now you see here 188 dealing a little bit with the droopy spring. The camera guy zooms in for no real reason. And we're at the 85-second mark, and the Blue Alliance has already gotten to their 3 rotors. Now, however, I'm going to pause it right here. Their lead is still slim. They've just got the 3 rotors, but the Red Alliance is only about 5-10 seconds behind them. The Red Alliance actually has to be feeling pretty good right now because they've got a KPA bonus. They're at 30 kPa right now, so they're feeling good about that. But being only about 10 seconds behind in gears against an alliance that you know is going to get to 4 rotors quickly, they're in good shape. There's no reason to panic for Red while Blue's executing their strategy. Right now, both alliances are feeling good about where this match is. So let's keep going and then keep an eye on 2386 as I grab my cursor and you see them. But they hit everything. They are always in the way. They love blocking the lane. Look at that position. They're patient. They don't move out of the way when they don't have to. And they're blocking 1 robot from coming in and 1 robot from coming out right there. It's kind of an art form. So I'm going to pause it here so we can talk about this for a bit. There's a lot of different ways to play defense in FRC. The most common one that teams think of is, hey, let's just go, 2056 is the best robot in the Alliance. We're going to send 1 robot and we're just going to chase them around and hit them. And that can be effective to a certain degree, except usually it's like when you play tag when you're 4 years old and like the person who's is like chasing someone. It's like you're chasing them, but you're never really catching them and you end up running around in circles. And that's what happens in an FRC match. Instead of actually slowing the team down, you're constantly on the chase. So one-on-one robot defense isn't always the most effective. But what 2386 did was they employed some zone defense. They found a couple chokehold points, the 2 lanes by the airship and the area behind the airship. And they said, we're going to patrol these areas and we're going to commandeer the robots that try and come through here. The Red Alliance needed to see that, hey, 23 to 86 is camping in a zone. We need to come around the back of the airship. And 2386, most teams aren't good at defense. And most teams they'll be assigned zone defense to play, but they won't stay in their spot. They aren't patient enough. And 2386 exhibited great patience here. So we see here 2056 now. At this point in the match, their alliance has hit 3 rotors. And so 2056 has stopped doing gears, and they're going to go for the 40 kPa up here in the boiler. So that was a big play. And it was important for 2056 to only drop 1 load of a gear, i.e. they couldn't do 2 loads of balls here because they needed every gear. So, as the match keeps going, we see 4939 and 4039. They are so close to 4 rotors now. Time running down. They're each coming back for their last cycle. We see here it's almost locked up. 4039 drops their last gear. And boom, guys, that's 4 rotors right now. So 30 seconds left in the match. The Blue Alliance has 4 rotors. The Red Alliance looks to be 2 gears away with 188 about to deliver a gear. So the Red Alliance, with this gear that 188 has on board right here, needs 1 more gear to get to 4 rotors. They feel like they're in good shape because they have the KPA advantage. They have those 60 points. Play the match. 188 delivers the gear. 2056 is loading up a gear. 188 pausing the match. We see now 188 in the corner has found a gear by the loading station, so they have a gear as well. So now the Red Alliance has 2 gears. They only need 1 more gear. They deliver 1 of these gears, and just 1 of these robots hangs. They win the match. So despite the great defense by 2386, 188 and 2056 are in a place to control this match. 67-25, we can see right here, they're already in position to go hang. They're kind of done for the match, so it's all coming down to this last gear. So we're going to clear this action and see where it takes us. 2056 comes back down the field, pausing at 2056 and 188. There's 17 seconds left. They are in a clump right here. Well, not right there. Let me draw a little bit better. They're right over here. 2056 is going to try and get to this loading station while 188 wants to come to this one. Why? Because that's where their ropes are positioned. Normally, they wouldn't be trying to do this do-si-do, but they have to get to their ropes. This do-si-do costs them a little bit of time. But even still, with how fast 188's hanger is and how fast 2056 hanger is, everything seems fine. So let it go. And they're coming into position. 2056 is in position. 188's in position. Whoa, I'm going to pause right now. 2056 is trying to score the gear. 188 comes in backwards. They are not going to try and score their gear. They figure they need to hang right away. They didn't, as the narrator says, they didn't need to hang right away because they could give up 1 hang. But it still seems like everything's fine. 2056 is going to go score a gear. But what happens if 2056 misses their gear? So in a situation like this, there's 4 different things you can do. You can have both robots not try and score a gear, which would be dumb, so that's not really an option. You could have 2056 try and 188 not. You could have 188 try and 2056 not, or you could have them both try. If they both try and 1 misses, then 2056 can't do anything once they miss because their gear's on the ground. They don't have an intake. But 188 would be able to make up for it with the one they're scoring. If they had just said 188, you go score the gear and 2056 is going to go hang, and 188 drops it, they'd be okay because 188's intake is lightning fast. They can pick it up and score it. But they went with the other option. And I think it was just because 2056 got into place a little bit sooner than 188 did. And as such, 2056 went to score the gear. And 188's thinking, oh, we just need to hang because if 2056 scores that gear, we're at 4 rotors. And they missed the point where if they could give up a hang because of the 60 extra points they had. And so this is when it all kind of goes wrong. And it just happens in a blink of an eye. And I don't know if myself, Mason, and Nick were back there behind this glass, I don't think anything happens differently because this is such a hard decision to make so quickly. But as we'll see, and this is heartbreaking, 2056 goes in, and they drop the gear. 188's already up, and with the gear in their robot, 2056 goes to hang, and that's the match. And this was heartbreaking to look at. I remember walking onto the field afterwards and walking around the airship, and kind of coming over right over here and seeing that gear in 188's robot. And, if you could have superimposed that with the score, that's heartbreaking, because that was the gear that was going to allow them to advance to the finals. And so this match was crazy. The Blue Alliance played absolutely perfectly. They knew their max was 445 points. Hey, guess what? They had 445 points. They hit exactly what their max was. They did it early, and their defense by 386 was great, but it was the actual strategy, because a lot of alliances this year who were overpowering gear alliances said, let's get to 4 rotors as quickly as possible, then everyone jumps on D. Except what would happen is they'd get to 4 rotors at like 50 seconds, everyone would jump on D for 20 seconds, then they'd all go back to hang and the Ds stopped. But having 2386 play defense for the whole match, blocking this lane right here, creating traffic back here, it slowed down 2056, 188, and 6725 just enough. You only need to slow them down by like 3 seconds, because if they had a couple more seconds there, they would have been okay. So it was perfect strategy by Blue. Left the Red Alliance with a super difficult call, and that's where we were, and that's how this ended up. 2056, with their earliest loss at an event in their history, 49-39 and 40-39 went on to win their 3rd district event at McMaster. Everyone went to provincials and had put on a huge show. But what was super cool was on Einstein, 2056 was there. And they were paired up with 1241, whose lead strategist was actually the drive coach for 49-39. And they had a scenario where they needed to stop their opponents from getting to 4 rotors, the 125 Alliance. And they sacrificed a hang to do it. It's almost like they learned the lesson about not sacrificing a hang here. And it was a beautiful move with 1241 going down the field at the end of the match, driving through their opponent's rope and just smashing them, keeping that 4th rotor from coming up. And so, I mean, there's a reason why 2056 and 1241 are 2 of the best teams in the world. They learn from mistakes, even the smallest ones. So, Nick and Mason, what do you guys think of that match?
You asked the question is if we would have made the same call as the coach of 2056, Tyler, did in that instance, and I absolutely would have, because if you're sitting in Tyler's shoes, you watched your drivers put a million gears on pegs all season long in practice. You have so much faith, and as the Alliance captain back there and probably the loudest person back there, you see the situation unraveling. You see that you need 3 hangs and 1 more gear. Your team has a gear. You're going to put that trust in your driver, because that's the kind of connection you have with them after training for so long out there. In this situation, I agree, it didn't work out so well for him, though.
But the hard part for 180, the hard part of 188 is that they have already committed to trusting 2056 to place that gear. Now, it didn't work out for 2056's placement, but 188 going to climb early, yes, they had plenty of time to go make that reassurance, but they could only afford to give up 1 of their hangs, not 2. So by risk mitigation, it made sense for 188 to go climb, even though that 2056 didn't get their gear. It made sense to make sure they still got their climb, because if 2056 spends more time placing that gear and they spend all the match placing the gear instead of hanging, 188 still has to be up at the touchpad at the end of the match.
And the other thing to think about is, like, we have the power of hindsight. We know how this match finished out. In FRC matches, as long as they value technical fouls as highly as they do, 1 tech foul throws that 60-50 equation totally out of whack. And you don't always know if a penalty's called. Sometimes a penalty just gets added on after the match. Sometimes, someone hasn't hit their referee tablet the right way. As such, you cannot always play in the margins. I mean, like, if you were constantly living in the margins, you're going to end up like Fermat, where you prove a theory in the margins and then no one actually sees the proof of the theory for 400 freaking years. So you have to play these things out. So 2056 was the first one to the peg. It makes perfect sense for them to keep going to score their gear. 188's like, man, we need to get a hang. And so it's like, calling this like a mistake, it's like it was just an interpretation of the system, and it just didn't work out because the Blue Alliance just played things so perfectly. And I mean, 49-39.
And it's so easy whenever you're watching, because you have so much more time now to think about it. But in those moments, you set rules for yourself as a coach that you're going to follow no matter what, right? And so you get down to a certain timestamp on the clock, and you're going to tell your alliance to go hang. You don't have time to weigh the options back there. You just have these rules, and it's those rules that end up guiding a lot of teams' success later on in the season.
Right. And I mean, I've watched this match numerous times leading up to the show, and like each time I watch the match, I notice something different. So, I mean, when you're watching it in real time, you only see so much, and you can't constantly be trying to deviate from plans. Like Mason said, like the best teams do the same things over and over again, and that pattern and that muscle memory is what allows them to be successful. But I mean, this was another cool thing about this match was it was like 6 competent robots on the field, and I think that's just a testament of the district system, that when you get into the second events, you no longer have these matches where like there's 4 competent robots and like 2 deadweights who are just there. But like 2386, if they weren't playing D, they could have easily scored 3 or 4 gears, and that alliance would have gotten to 4 rotors with 60 seconds left. So
we have a couple of questions here from the audience I want to hit before we run out of time for this match. Skyhawk11 is asking, at 28 seconds, should have the Blue Alliance tried to block the red robots behind the blue airship, regardless of what the outcome is here. So we're here at 33 seconds left in the match. So let's play a little bit here and watch if the blue robots could have done a little bit more back here on the right side of the field.
So I guess we're watching 2056 right there coming around. And I mean, they slow them down a little bit, but I think the blue and 4939 makes a little charge at them. I think the Blue Alliance robots, they wanted to lock their hangs in. The same way that we were just talking about 2056 and 188 wanting to lock their hangs in. They could have taken the risk to play a little bit more D on that, but I think they all wanted to lock their hangs in. I think they were very stuck on the 445 strategy. So, yeah, I mean, a couple more seconds there, especially since 4939 hang was pretty solid, but also 4939's hang, I saw a very close enough person. It was more precise than some other teams' hangs, so it did take a couple extra seconds for that rope to kind of catch in their little mechanism. So, yeah, maybe a couple seconds more, but again, this is like a really, really hard one. Like it takes a lot of nerve to push your hang out, and I mean, there's very few teams who did that really well last year.
Yeah, I've seen it so many times where you add some excitement to the end of the match by kind of deviating from your plan, and then that's going to throw everything into chaos, and it's going to make the drivers nervous, and then they're going to not get that precise lineup on the hang. We've got another question here from Azathoth. How much?
Mason, sorry, Mason, just before we get to that question, if, for example, this is just how random and crazy the first world is. If 4039 had spent more time blocking 2056 and kept 2056 from getting back there, 188 would have scored their gear. And then they would have gotten to 4 rotors. So it actually kind of worked out that 2056 came back with the gear because they were the one to drop it. You know, it's like one of those crazy sort of fluky sorts of things where if you'd played a better strategy, it might have worked out worse for you.
Yeah, and I think that really leads in well to Azathoth's question here is, and I'm probably mispronouncing that name, but how much of the red missing this last gear can be chalked up to unforced errors, or how much on the other side, how much can we credit the blue for creating a scenario that pushes red beyond their comfort zone?
I think it's a little bit of column A and column B. I think definitely the fact that it came down to a gear at the last second is all credit to the Blue Alliance, because the defense, especially by 2386, and the plan by the whole alliance, slowed every single cycle the Red Alliance had down. But I mean, as for just 2056 just missing that gear, I mean, all season long, I'd say when 2056 got to the peg, 90% of the time, the gear got on the peg. Maybe it was because Sam was rushing at that point. I just kind of think it was just some happenstance. Maybe the positioning of the balls there, maybe a droopy spring, who knows?
Yeah, there's so many things, right, that can go wrong in a match, and I think just creating things that have to be done in the very last few seconds is some of the best defense you can play on a high-powered offense.
And I mean, part of it is it's a testament to 2056 and 188 and 6725, but especially 2056. To beat 2056, everything has to go right for your alliance, and something has to go wrong for their alliance.
All right, so we're going to go on next from Ontario. We're going to head down to the deep south of Indiana. This is where the sweet corn, one of the best competitions of the season every year. It's the famous Indiana Regional Robotics Competition, Invitational, whatever the name is. It's really a good one. Nick, broadcasting live from Indiana?
Yes, so the match we're going to bring you to is going to be IRI Finals Match 2. So the setup for this match is pretty simple. You have Alliance 1 in red of 2767 the Robonauts, 3452, and 1018, the Pike Robo Devils. And Alliance 3 is in blue with Upper Creek Robotics, 195 the Cyber Knights, 2590 Nemesis, and 1710. Now, in this match, you have a lot of storylines on these individual robots. Most notably, 2767, St. Louis champions, easily the best at running combined cycles in the world. And what I mean by combined cycles, meaning that as they're coming back with their gear cycles, the Strike Force will go find the nearest hopper, if it's available, and load only the amount of balls that the robot will hold, and then keep moving on to go place that gear. They were very sensible about how many balls would get into the robot and how long it would take to get there too. Paired with them, 118, easily one of the best shooters, field shooters in the world. Pretty decent at gears, but they really made a name for themselves this year at field shooting. On the other side of the glass, you've got 1619, who had a heartbreaking exit in the Hopper division of the Houston Championship this year. They picked up 3309 as the #1 seed of that division. Should have ran away with that division, but the House of Cards fell, so they were hungry to bring home another banner this season. And paired up with them, they had 195. Easily one of the best shooters, if not the best shooter, out of the New England district this year. They won the Hartford district, and they won the New England District Championship. So in match 1, the Blue Alliance, they got 4 rotors, won the match, but in that match, the Red Alliance did not. A lot of fuel scoring capability, but they did not get the 4th rotor in match 1. So it was an easy win for Blue in match 1 of the finals. So setting up for finals 2, everybody's wondering, okay, how is 118 and 118 Strike Force and 3452, how are they going to play this to make sure they get that 4 rotors, knowing that they are going to play against an almost guaranteed 4 rotors, with 1619 being an excellent gear score and 195 being no slouch of that either, with 2590 helping with that as well. Whether or not they choose to play a bit of defense or they just try to reduce their shooting to get that 4 rotor was the question on everybody's mind in that gymnasium in Lawrence North High School in July. So pretty simple. We can go straight into this match. It kind of speaks for itself a little bit. One thing to note as well, in match 1, 118 did miss most of their shots in auto. Only 10 kilopascals of pressure were built in that match, which is kind of unheard of for 118, who would almost overload the boiler in autonomous mode. So we're gonna jump into the match, which seems to be ready to play here. So I'm gonna hit the play button, and we're already. Oh, I will rewind a little bit. My apologies. See if I can get that to work. Okay, so can't seem to get it to go to the start of auto because I really want to show all of auto. Oh, bummer. Okay, so the start of auto, we're already 4 seconds in. So we hit the play button, and we see that both 195 and 118 are going shot for shot. And then 2767 Strike Force comes in and also loads up the boiler too. So auto ends. I'm going to let the boilers count a little bit. Each alliance gets a rotor in auto. And once the boilers count, I'm going to pause here. Both of these alliances are matched shot for shot in autonomous. They both have 43 kilopascals of pressure. Right down, the boilers say right down, they're even on the number of balls scored, which is incredible. So right away, each of these alliances dead even. It's time to score some gears, right? Well, sort of. We see that 118 collects balls through the field. They get hung up a little bit on 195 here, while Strike Force has already been down and back, goes and places their first gear. 118 is still collecting balls, knowing that 195 is going to start shooting here, which they do on the right-hand side. And 118 has to keep up, otherwise they're not going to win this match because they have to beat them at the boilers. 118 takes a few shots, and they score a bunch of balls from the airship, which is not a shot we saw a lot this season. Meanwhile, 195 is gone and switched back to doing gears. They get tangled up a little bit with 118 here. So pausing here for a second. So now red is ahead. Blue is trailing behind by a few kilopascals. This is important because blue doesn't have time to shoot anymore. It's time for them to go place gears and make sure they get 4 rotors. So moving on. Got about 80-something seconds left in the match. Strike Force is doing their thing. 118 collects a few balls on their way by, but now they start going to place gears because they see that they're ahead. Meanwhile, 16-19 Upper Creek just does the same thing they did all season by running their full field cycles. Nobody's defending really much at all in this match, which is interesting. It's two strategies of both alliances using all three robots to make sure they get 4 rotors. So there's 60 seconds left. Both alliances still have 3 rotors. Going to pause here for a second. 195 starts to take a few shots here. Looking at the airships, I'm going to try to draw this well. It's not as good of an angle as the last match we saw, but you can still see that there's what looks like maybe three gears left here for rotor 4 on the Red Alliance, and maybe 3 or 4 left on rotor Blue. So it looks like Red might get this match, right? Well, let's see what happens here.
While that's happening, can we talk about how few balls are left on the field? This is crazy.
So 195 is over here on shooting because they see that they're down on fuel. The boilers count, and then 118 is like, okay, I see 195 shooting, so I have to shoot a few to make sure I get ahead, because if each of us get full rotors and everybody hangs, they still have to win on balls. One of those few times this year where fuel mattered. So we see now that 118 is, the Red Alliance is now very ahead. There's 26 seconds left in the match. Blue has their 4 rotor. They got it with about 40 seconds left to go in the match. We kind of glossed over that because we were looking at shooting. So Blue already has 4 rotors, knowing that they have to shoot to make up the difference on Red. Blue's thinking that Red is going to get 4 rotors in this match. What they can't see, because the sightlines on this field are a little difficult, is Red is missing 2 gears still. Red is missing 2 gears with 26 seconds left to go. Going to clear the screen. We're going to keep playing. So Strike Force is about to go place a gear at the red airship here. After they shoot some fuel that they're trying to make sure that they stay out ahead of the Blue Alliance. Everything's settled right now. Red is still way out ahead. I'm going to pause it here. I'm going to go back a little bit. And this is one of the hardest things to do as a drive coach, if I can get this to behave nicely. One of the hardest things to do is not only keep track of where you are in the match, but where your opponents are in the match, especially when there's a delay in between the robots scoring the fuel and them actually counting for points. It's pretty difficult to keep track of this. I'm going to go back to about 30-something seconds left in the match, where we're still close on fuel and Red pulls out ahead from a pretty good shot from 118. But the point I'm trying to make, there's a couple, if I can get this to pause, there's a couple issues here. So if it's hard to tell when you're across the glass, but the amount of shots taken by 195, if you do a little quick math here, probably was not going to be enough fuel to make up the difference between the 62 kilopascals that Blue has and the 75 kilopascals that Red has. Going to keep playing the match here. So 27-67, since they've placed their last gear, they take a few shots here if it's going to play for me. There it is. To get a little bit of insurance. And in my opinion, hindsight is 20/20, they didn't need to do that. Meanwhile, 118 has spent that whole time struggling to get the last gear needed on the airship. 118 needs help. And 118's ground gear intake is not nearly as good as Strike Force's. Simply put, Strike Force, even though they were one of the best at combined cycles, their ground gear intake was amazing because they would just drive over a gear and the robot would sort itself out by itself. If Strike Force drove over a gear, it was going to get into the robot every single time. So the Red Alliance elects to have 118 try to place this last gear with 13 seconds left. They're not far enough ahead in fuel to skip a climb, so they have to both get this last gear to get the last rotor, and all 3 robots have to hang. And let's see how it turns out. You see 118 struggles to place it. Strike Force has already gone to climb, knowing that they have to. There's no gears available for Strike Force to place. 118 gets the placement, but it's too late. They get the gear in the airship, but they can't let go of the gear fast enough to actually have the rotor spun up in time.
Man, for that, like watching that last few minutes, it looked like there was some indecision by the driver there. So often these drivers had, rules that they always knew how much time it took them to go hang. They had to go get on there. They knew there was not enough time left on the clock. So it looked like he abandoned trying to hang that last gear for a split second and did an extra 360-degree turn there as the coach corrected them the importance of putting up that last gear.
Right. And this is, again, very similar to last match where you think you think you can do it, but something goes wrong. We saw earlier that that 118 struggled twice to place this same gear. They had about 25, 30 seconds to do it, and the first time they tried to get it out, they couldn't actually eject a gear when they were facing the peg, which burned a lot of time for them.
Yeah, you mentioned how difficult this game is to understand as a drive coach or anybody behind the glass, who's winning and by how much and what actions you really need to take there. I think this game was one of the hardest ones there too, because you had to have a mental model of what your opponents were able to do. You had to be able to glance over, see how many balls were in their hoppers, make an estimate of how many points that might be worth, knowing their accuracy. At the same time, you had to know how many gears they have left, who's running gear cycles, how many balls are on the ground, who might pick up those balls. There was just a ton of things you had to keep straight in your head. So a lot of coaches made simplified models. They would just look at the KPA, not really do the math there, but just know how many balls were they behind, not looking at the final scores, because you might trust that your alliance would get to that four-rotor point. A lot of tricky games here to simplify it, because I don't think anybody I know was capable of knowing all the math at the exact time. I mean, Karthik's really, really good at math. I mean,
hey, I just want to jump in, by the way, guys.
He's really good.
There's a lot of people saying in chat, and I'm live right now, that
you have no idea how difficult it is out there to understand what the score is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and one of the things out there is it looked like the peg maybe wasn't in the right place when 118 was trying to place it.
Yeah, I think the peg was still up in the airship. I don't think either. I'm not sure if they brought it up because they wanted to make it easier for someone to hang, or if it was caught. But yeah, I think there was a peg that was up there. Sorry, I was muted.
And that's a difficult thing to do, especially in the busiest time that the busiest time for a pilot is those last 35 seconds of a match, where they have to split their time between getting gears up the lifts and deploying the ropes in time for their alliance partners. That it's possible, it's kind of hard to tell from this video, but it's possible that gear peg either was pulled up so strike force didn't hit it on the way up, or that the gear peg was simply left up because the pilots had other things to do, like going and pulling other gear pegs up or getting the ropes down.
So one thing I wanted to talk about here was while Nick was narrating and breaking this match down, I went back and looked at some of the stats from IRI from 1114 scouting database, and like 195 and 1619 and 2590 crazy overperformed in the elims on gear scoring. If you take their gear scoring from quals, this was an alliance that should not have consistently got to four rotors. And I get that 195's and 1619 stats are depressed because they were shooting so many balls during quals matches, but like they still shot a lot of balls in this match too. They were on fire, and the fact that they got to four rotors so early, I mean, their combined ball and gear cycles were just played so effectively. And I think 195, they fly under the radar every year. I think probably because New England doesn't get as much attention as they used to. I'm not really sure
those
why
are fighting words right there, Karthik.
Yeah. No, it's true. I mean, places like Indiana get a lot of attention because it becomes four-rotor heaven early, or it becomes capture city early, because it seems to be a different play style, where in Indiana people play the game at a much more offensive way than there's a lot more defense in New England.
I also think that we all get caught up in like very buzzy teams, and so people will pay attention to the region where 254 is. They'll pay attention to Texas because 148 and 118 are there. They'll pay attention to Ontario because 2056 is there. But like I think that New England flies under the radar a bit. And like 195 for the last 3 years, in my opinion, has been a top 10 team in the world, maybe a top 5 team in the world.
I agree.
The last 2 years, definitely a top. Like 2016, I think people did not realize how good they were until everyone started talking about their freaking human player, who was unreal. But 195 was so good.
I mean, that was a robot that, you leave him alone. 195 last year could put 9 boulders in the tower by themselves.
They could do it. They were like a union construction team. They were just like building.
Yeah, right. And I believe did we have 195 and 118 playing off last year at the IRI finals? Am I remembering that right?
We did.
Yes.
We did.
Yes, that's true.
188, 2056 of the Killer Bees against 195, 1114, and 225 in very epic finals.
Yeah, another repeat epic finals there. I do want to acknowledge some of our good chatters out there. One, acknowledge that the peg was messed up there. But Alfred Demonreach, he really wants to point out this robot dance that's going on in the Blue Alliance during autonomous mode. I might have missed it there because Nick told me to watch 118 shoot their balls. But let's take another look at it here on the blue side of the field. That is fairly choreographed in there, huh? All those robots absolutely moving around. I mean, I think that's what's so impressive is people, teams recognizing that, in this game you have to be dynamic with your autonomous mode and do different things and reprogram over lunch. It's risky, but it's cool.
And the practice field at IRI this past year over lunch was probably the busiest I've ever seen it, where when we were setting up for the live show, we were doing a bit of scouting over lunch, and we saw that everybody trying to prepare themselves for these choreographed autonomous modes. It seemed to be the name of lunch. I don't know if anybody actually ate lunch. Instead, they were writing software for their entire lunch break. And 16, 19, and 195, they were two of them that they spent a lot of time making sure their autonomous modes didn't run into each other so that they could maximize the amount of fuel they get and make sure that gear gets on too.
Someday I want to have the Nick Lawrence show where we give him a cameraman who follows him around in a microphone. And he just goes around at lunch in the pits and tells me what other people are doing. Not just lunch, all day long, the entire competition. He just follows people around the pits. He just finds out what's going on there, gets me the backstory on all these things. I mean, for me, that's one of my favorite things about going to competitions is you see all the other stuff going on, the off the field stress that's always building up. Yeah. When you watch the webcast, you miss out on all that fun stuff. You can't see who's rebuilding the robot frantically between finals matches.
I think it's a lot of people don't know this, but there's a lot of teams now who will specifically assign scouts to watch the practice field at lunch during at events. It's definitely a thing, or not even just at lunch, but basically all Saturday morning to see what teams are talking to each other, what teams are trying new things out, and it's totally a thing. And so, yeah, there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that happens there, and so sometimes a lot of people on webcast are really surprised when you see these new things happen after lunch, but a lot of teams in attendance aren't surprised because they've been scouting that out.
So we got another question coming from the audience from Azatoth again. This is going for both of you guys. How much do you think the teamwork strategies would have been different if pilots were removed from the game so that gears were scored instantaneously upon being placed on the peg? Maybe not on the peg, maybe going in a slot into a big bucket if the whole airship was one big bucket, but removing the human element of scoring the balls. I'm sorry, the gears.
I think the game, first of all, would have. So right now there was low barriers of entry to this game, and so a lot of teams, who normally didn't do well, did well because gear scoring was so easy. Mm-hmm. I think it would have. So if you remove the human element, it does two things. One, it means would these teams still have a way of being able to score without an active mechanism? So because right now having the humans pull it out was what allowed so many teams to be extra successful. Yeah. On the flip side, the human element. Actually, a lot of people were like, oh, that just kind of adds some randomness and whatever, and it's good for everyone. It's like the human element actually makes the elite teams even better because they're the ones who will spend lots of time practicing this stuff. They'll build their giant $2,000 airships and do this stuff over and over again. While the team that's scrambling together just to get a robot done, their pilots, the first time they're pulling up a gear is on a practice match, guaranteed. So there's a little push-pull there. But I mean, to answer that question, it really depends on if they would have another way for robots to actually score without an active mechanism.
Yeah,
Nick, any thoughts on that?
And removing the human element of actually being able to pull gears out of a robot that makes gear scoring objectively easier, you might have actually seen more robots attempt to actually score balls because it would have appeared a little bit easier because admittedly a ball, in my opinion, is a bit easier to handle than this weird gear game piece. It's kind of difficult to actively place one of those. Now, teams figured out pretty simple solutions for it, but just on the surface, a ball is kind of easier to move through a robot than it is to move that gear through the robot. So I think you would have seen a bit more of a sway to people attempting fuel. I'm not saying that people would be more successful at fuel because it was still difficult to score that many balls. But I think the overall balance of gear-only robots would have been a lot less.
All right, Mason, what do you got for us now? Mason's just getting his match queued up. I think he's got a match from us from Einstein in St. Louis. So
I think that's true.
Thanks, Karthik, for covering me there.
No problem, brother.
I lost my mouse battery there for a second, so I couldn't hit the unmute button. I couldn't bring up the match to show you guys this.
Oh, it's a cascade of errors or a cascade of things that sounds like a lot what we're talking about tonight.
Yeah, I mean, it's so often what comes down to it. And you know, I really wanted to bring up this match as the last match of St. Louis. One, because it's like my ode to St. Louis. I've had so many good experiences at the FRC Championship event in St. Louis. It's really, you know, it holds a special place in my heart. So I had to feature something from that tournament. And, you know, thinking back to my experience there where I watched so many matches and there were so many good ones, and the round robin was just unreal. There was extreme amount of excitement going on. But really, this final match was amazing. It was so close. The first match in the series, the Blue Alliance won it by a mere 16 points. I mean, to have, you know, all this tournament go on and then to get to the end where the teams are so evenly matched where it's just one mistake away, it's just super exciting. So I really felt it could go either way going into this second match. Both teams are playing at such a high level. And, you know, for those of you who have been to the Einstein field, been on a team, maybe even part of a drive crew who's played on Einstein, I know, you know, Nick and Karthik, you guys have done this. The exhaustion level that you get to at the end of the day is just unreal. You're on your fourth day of a very, very long season. You haven't been sleeping. You're so excited. You stayed up all night trying to make your pick list. You've been sorting out problems. It's been a roller coaster. You peaked after you won the finals of your division, and then you have this crazy amount of downtime before you go to Einstein. You have a lot to do, but then your energy levels drop, so you have to ramp back up. You go through the round robin, you get really excited again, you're amped because you're going to the finals, and then there's some skit or something that takes an hour, and you lose all that energy and focus. And so the teams that make it here have such a mental challenge to be so focused, to be able to play all day long through these highs and lows and come out here and still execute at a high level. I don't think most people appreciate how hard that is and how hard it is on all team members who are going through it. Your scouters are still going, your pit crew is still going, your drive crew and your drivers are still going. It's crazy in that we don't see more diminishing performance at the very end here. So really nice shout out to all these teams for playing so well. You know, going into this match, I'll spoil it. The Blue Alliance wins. I think you guys already knew that. But they only win by just a few points. I think it comes down to like 10 balls or so would have swung this to the other way, and Red would have gotten to go to a third match. So every point in this match, I think, is worthy of acknowledging of a parallel universe where something different could have happened as we go in there. So let me just walk you through some of the exciting points that I think happen here. As an introduction, before I go, Red Alliance, big players, 1986, Team Titanium, 3310, Blackhawk Robotics. You know, Titanium is probably one of the sharpest shooters out there. Their pace is a little bit slower, but they just do not miss. Blackhawk, you know, extremely fast, all Omni drive, swinging around the field. Their partner on the field in this match is 3719, the STEM Whalers. Great gear robot who also picks up a lot of defense in this match. Interesting note about all three of these guys is none of them have any traction, so they're all playing loosey-goosey on the field, no ability to push or defend their position without interacting with a field element like up against a wall or an airship. You know, it's rare that we see so many of those end up on Einstein. I can't remember a time where they all ended up on the same alliance either. Playing on the Blue Alliance, we have Team 254, the Cheesy Poofs. You know, just epic robot years after year. Their partner, Strike Force 2767, we just saw a lot of good stuff out of them playing at IRI, so they need no introductions. And their partner in this match is 1676, the Pazcac Pioneers, who are great assistant robots and really perform well for them throughout the tournament. So kicking it off, I want you to kind of focus over here on the, let's see, let me get the video back on the field. Boom. Actually, let me back that up real quick here. Move some windows around. What I really want to highlight here is what happens on the Blue Alliance over here. This performance that these guys get going on, getting 2 rotors spinning in auto. I mean, that is such a challenge with this game. We talked about how hard it is for teams to set that up. Really impressive there. Those bonus points really put them ahead. But over on the Red Alliance, coming up over here, we still see some shooting going on by Team Titanium. They just don't miss, but they get a bonus as well here as Blackhawk is able to start doing some shooting for them there. Oh, pause it right here.
So Mason, can I interrupt you for real quick? There's one thing I don't want to gloss over here.
Always interrupt me.
It's another autonomous thing, but it's the craziness of the Cheesy Poops autonomous mode. They're able to place a gear and then go get a hopper and shoot and miss hardly any of these field balls. I mean, this is what FRC programmers dream to be able to do. Never mind, like, just let's watch what 254 does again. So they start against the driver wall with their fuel intake forwards. They go and place a gear with this smooth pass. I'm going to roll the match here. Hopefully it works. So they place that gear, and then the smooth path where they go and they shoot all these balls out of the hopper.
Yeah. By the way, they don't have a turret. Oh, by the way, they don't have a crab drive either to help them with that.
And what's crazy is, for the old timers of the crowd, you'll remember for years and years, 254 was ahead of everyone mechanically, but their weakness was thought to be their software. And I'm talking around like 2008 through 2012-ish era. And then now I think people may have caught up to them mechanically, but by far, like, you think of their 2014 robot, I mean, the software, they're just like they seem to be light years ahead. I know 971's up there with them, and like, I'm not to diminish anyone else, but 254 just like this combination of just like being good at all sides of everything FRC. And like, there's a reason they're respected as and considered, to be the best team in first, because they just nail everything.
All right. So over here on the coming out of autonomous mode, what I think is just so amazing is how this Blue Alliance has a choreographed dance that they've been doing match after match. Their first move, because they've got some great ground intakes between Strike Force and between the Cheesy Poops, is to hit all the hoppers. So we're 3 seconds into autonomous. I'm going to hit play, and before you blink your eyes, all the hoppers are going to be hit. Okay, here we go. Hit play. Boom, boom, boom. All the hoppers are getting hit. Oh, but wait, 1986 down there knows the plan, and they interact with the Cheesy Poops right there at the hopper. Let me back that up before you miss it there. I think this is really impressive. This is the deep dive teams are doing in. They're looking for these trends that teams are making a pattern, the same things they do every time. Because you want to do that whenever you're on one team, because it's so much easier on your alliance if you can just do the same thing every time. However, you give away your plan to your opponents. And I think it's impressive how Team 1986 Titanium is there to meet the Poofs and distract them and try to slow them down there coming out of that. So moving on from that, I think it's impressive here right away as the Cheesy Poofs are again the target of their opponent's defense here. So let me clear that right here. And this is kind of hard to see because of the hopper in here. But right over here, you see all this congestion that's about to go down. This is what's going to happen to 254 throughout this match, is they are going to get dogged on constantly. I mean, just like we all noted that they are an amazing team and have such high performance levels, they are going to be the most target, because if you leave them alone, they are just capable of so much. They're good at gears in this game. They can hold so many balls, and once they get shooting, it really starts to turn into a problem. So I'm going to turn this on here. We're going to watch these guys go and get pushed around there. A lot of chaos comes in and happens there. All right. Now, as the clock ticks down, you see over here in the lower left corner, that Team Titanium is able to shoot for free down here. These guys are so accurate. They're a little bit slow and they take some time, but they make every single shot. And that's such a powerful thing to have on this alliance. So while their partners are able to go out there and get gears, you know that Blackhawk is going to turn around. Copioli is not going to let that team slow down. You know that the Stem Whalers are going to put up 4 gears because they've been doing it all round robin long. So these guys are are confident that they're going to get their 4 rotors. So they're going to do this very time-consuming task and start shooting because they know they have to put balls in. It's a risk, but I think it's the right choice to make there so that they're competitive in this match. So Titanium gets to shooting. See if we can get this to go. And it takes a while here. But once they're free, did you guys see that? I'm going to go back here. Look right here on the field. Keep your eyes right where I put this circle. Boom. Did you guys see what
spin move by Strikeforce? Oh, man. The kid driving that, or at least operating the base of that robot, he is one with that machine. No question about that.
And that's not just a one-time thing. It happens so often throughout this tournament. It's unreal how many times they bump and roll off of people.
Well, I mean, looking at that, it makes me think that, they just probably had a drive straight command that was okay with rotation, like that you hit the rotate, but it's still going to drive straight while doing that. If he was doing that manually, that's
even
awesome.
Better, right?
Yeah.
But it's almost like they anticipate the hit coming. Meanwhile, down here in the corner, we see the stem whalers putting some D, making sure that there's no shooting going to happen. I think that was such an important choice by the Red Alliance here, is that they said we cannot let this Blue Alliance have free shots. So anytime any Blue Alliance is going into that zone of when they're going to have the potential to start shooting, we've got to pull off of our task and we've got to go there. I mean, so many people weren't willing to take this risk this year because they were so focused on getting 4 rotors, and they wouldn't do anything until they got really close to 4 rotors. Then they would feel the cushion. Red Alliance in this match, they're saying, no, we're going to do it every chance we get, because if we don't, it's game over for us.
So there's one thing that's interesting right now that I see, since we're paused here at 92 seconds. I see that Red has 3 rotors, right? Blue is still working on their 3rd, and they're just now placing their second to last gear for rotor number 3. They're also, Blue is pretty far behind as well in shooting as well, because 1986, who doesn't miss a shot that they take, they're at 54 kilopascals, the Red Alliance, whereas as Blue, they're sitting at 32. So Blue, at 90 seconds left to go, they have some work to do. They're about 2 gears behind and a lot of fuel behind right now.
Yeah, and that's really thanks to Blackhawk being able to do a little bit of extra shooting for them. I mean, Titanium was a really good autonomous bot. They were most of the season this year. They really were setting the bar high with how accurate they were. But 3310 being able to unload their extra 10 and get most, maybe 8 of those in there really helped them put them over and get that little bit of lead going on.
Yeah, and by the end of Saturday, I actually think that Blackhawk was a better shooter than 1986. 1114 was in that division, and so we saw it firsthand. And 3310 just got better and better and better. Mm-hmm. And I mean, they were just such an all-around robot, because they were next to 610 the best gear scoring robot in the division, but then next to 1986 the best ball scorer, and then they just kept. I mean, that robot peaked at championship. It peaked during Einstein, which is unheard of.
Right, and something you see through this match as well is that hopefully we can find a way to point it out, but the driver for Blackhawk Robotics as well, just like the Strikeforce driver, was one with his robot, in the sense that anytime that a defender would come in and smack Blackhawk, they would just spin out of the way or take the hit, let the robot drift sideways, and then keep going.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it was just that Paul Copioli was losing his voice by that point, and so the driver was getting better going in there. I kid. I think Paul's a great coach, and I think that's a big part of why this alliance was so successful. And I think right here what we just missed, too, is that the Red Alliance playing D once again on the Cheesy Poofs were able to knock a gear loose from the Cheesy Poofs' mouth. An impressive thing, but to their credit, Cheesy Poofs immediately can pick that up and go and score it again there. This match is progressing along pretty well, but one thing that's notable is that the Blue Alliance still has not taken any extra shots. They're still sitting at that 32 points that they got coming out of Autonomous. Meanwhile, Titanium down here in the lower left corner again, they're going to shoot their second load there. So I think that's really an impressive note that the Blue Alliance hasn't even shot. Red Alliance is ticking away at that. I've said it once, I'll say it again. It's so impressive. The Red Alliance isn't even focused 100% on 4 rotors. They know they're going to get it, so they can do these other tasks, and that keeps them so in the game and with a good lead right here going up against this high-profile alliance throughout. They just have such good awareness of what the Blue Alliance is doing and when to play defense on them. I'm just so impressed by that.
To jump on what Mason's saying is that the Red Alliance was not a guarantee for 4 rotors. So, for them to play it this cool means that they were really playing on the edge, and they knew they had to play on the edge because they were playing against such a great alliance. But because 1986 was not the greatest gear scorer out there, 37-19 and 33-10 made up a lot. They're really pushing the boundaries here by running all these extra ball cycles and then throwing in the extra D. So they're trying to do everything. If you think about your alliance only having room for so many actions in the match, they are going to use every single one of those actions, and they're not leaving themselves with any cushion. And it's we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, we will. It's pushing on a little bit further here into the match. The gear game is feeling strong by both alliances here. But this is kind of the point where the Blue Alliance is starting to say, we need to start lining up to shoot, okay? Red Alliance can recognize how many balls are in the hoppers of both the Strike Force robot and the Cheesy Poofs robot. So it's going to be their target to try to make sure that they don't get the chance to go out there. So here, about this point in the match, is when we see Cheesy Poofs. Let me find my circle tool. Boom, right there. Put your eyes on that. All right, I'm going to clear that so you can see. But Cheesy Poofs have lined up. This is their first shot in teleop with 40 seconds left in the match, and they get hit by the STEM Whalers. Okay, that's the third robot alliance. It's not even one of these power coach teams. It's the alliance doing a great job. And bam, the Cheesy Poofs are hit again. You guys see that red circle? We got to clear that guy. Let's keep your attention down here, right? So both of these robots are lining up to shoot. We need some chaos getting caused by the Red Alliance, because if they don't stop that action, these robots have so many balls in their hopper. They can be just so detrimental. However, there is something I got to point out. Something happened while we were focused down there in that corner. So I'm going to back up a little bit. Okay, right about here, we've seen Titanium, 1986. Let's find them on the field. I believe this is them right there. All right, they've shot twice. They need to shoot again. All right, the Red Alliance is on track to get their 4 rotors. They don't need to be worrying about this. But if we follow them around, we watch them have a little bit of trouble finding the balls. We're so lucky to be sitting up here. You see them right here? They're just circling. They don't know where to go. There's confusion. They know they need the balls, but they can't find them. There's this massive pile over here. That's no good, right? We got our gear robots going in and out of there. We got these balls over here. I don't think they can see them because the drivers and coaches have such a hard time seeing. This whole area that ends up being right here is just the cutoff zone. Nothing good can ever be seen right here because you have to put your cheeks right up along the glass to look there. Well, in this section of balls right there, that's a no good one. They can't see that. It's behind the airship. This one's kind of hidden from the airship as well. And I think at this moment is really a defining moment in this match because Titanium can't find the balls. Remember when I said earlier, this match was only decided by 10 balls.
And to jump in with what Mason was saying is Titanium all season long had been winning matches by a lot and not playing a lot of ball shooters. So rarely at this point in a match was Titanium looking for balls, and rarely were they in a match where balls would be this scarce. I mean, Titanium loved loading up from hoppers. They preferred hoppers over using their intake. Mm-hmm. But there's so few balls left on the field at this point because of 254 and 2767 and 3310 that this is now Titanium being a little bit out of their element. And so I think if they had played matches like this all season long, they would have known where to go. They would have known where the balls tend to accumulate. But seeing a field that looks like this probably for only the third time, as in the 2 other matches they played against 254 and 2767, it's intimidating. So you're trying to figure out what's going on.
So we're going to hit play here and watch Titanium. Don't be distracted by that Blue Alliance that we were looking at earlier. Titanium, they go up to line up, they start shooting. They're going to make every single ball they take, but that's it. They're out of balls. Okay, so that was just such a short shot right there. They only load about 10. Their hopper is much bigger than that. They were forced to go line up there and shoot without a full load. I think they legitimately could not see the open patches of balls in the match. So now they're stuck here at 28 seconds left. They don't need much else. There's not a lot of other actions they can do on the field. Meanwhile, this is another deciding point. While there's been so much, defense going on in this corner, at this point, because of the ropes coming down and the recognizing that a penalty was going to swing a close match, the Red Alliance evacuates. And And, you know, that decision is something that went on all season. You know, Karthik's talked a lot about playing in the margins and cutting it close. You know, this is an instance where I think they could have stood to cut it a little bit more close, because what we're left here as these final few seconds tick down, we have 3 red robots who are already engaged at their ropes, 3 robots who are fast climbers. Blackhawks is already halfway up. There's 15 seconds left. And these blue robots over here are just finishing up their shooting. They're still shooting, actually, I think, right now. So that, to me, is such a critical point, is that these guys need to play a close match. They've been playing a close match all match long, but then they gave themselves so much extra time on the hang. And granted, it's incredibly difficult to play defense around those ropes and you know, potentially rack up a season-ending penalty, which is a bad way to go out. So difficult choice there. But man, those.
When Mason paused it just a few seconds ago, remember, the ball score was 73-39. The Red Alliance probably felt pretty comfortable at this point, thinking, hey, if we just get our 3 hangs, we've got this. They're not thinking that their opponents are going to put up another 40 KPA, which means 120 balls in the next 28 seconds. But like, as we play this through, what 254 and with 2767 do here is phenomenal, because everyone else, normally in most matches all season long, everyone's hanging at this point. No one is trying to do anything else. But these guys are not just shooting, they're still picking up balls.
And there's a critical point here that as well, that it may have been possible that the Red Alliance made a mathematical error here, that the Red Alliance didn't get 2 rotors in auto, correct?
Correct.
Whereas Blue had a 20-point advantage in auto, meaning they had to score 20 kilopascals of pressure less.
Right. I had even forgotten about that while we've been watching this match for 3 minutes.
Yeah, and it's just it's so, you know, it's a testament to Strikeforce and Cheesy Boost for having these giant hoppers. I think that's a big part of the game. I think it's the fact that, you know, the Red Alliance didn't have a lot of traction to be able to push on these robots and really force them, you know, far away from where they wanted to be. All they kind of do was stay in their way. So you couldn't play, you know, a super high level of defense there. I mean, in the qualification matches, Cheesy Boost and Strikeforce put up 100 KPA. They joined the 100 KPA club in qualification matches. You know, these 2 are amazing shooters. You know, most people didn't get to, or nobody else got to 100 KPA even whenever they got to pick their partner that they wanted to play with. So exceptional shooters going up against each other and just proving that exceptional shooting can come down and win you a match there. But look at that score, 543 to 546. I think there was a 5-point penalty on each side there. So really it was just 9 balls that separated these guys.
And Nick really made the cogent point right there. The 2-rotor auto by the Blue Alliance is what allowed them to only put up 56 KPA and win this match. Red had a huge KPA advantage here. We see it of 17 points, but the 20 points for the 2 rotors in auto and that beautiful cheesy poop auto where they were able to drop the gear, score some balls, Strikeforce hits their 10, all that combination of everything. Like, this was a perfectly executed match by both teams, like both alliances. I don't know what more you would have asked for them. Like, you know, like, sure, 1986 spent a couple extra seconds looking for balls, and that's what it comes down to when you're differentiating between these alliances. But I think this was cool. I think this was the 2 best alliances in St. Louis that ended up playing in the finals, and it was an absolutely epic match.
Yeah, I just love it when we see, you know, these really good matches. It happened last year too, or 2016 at St. Louis as well. Those finals matches were just so exciting and so evenly matched that even a small penalty could swing it into either team's favor there at the end of the match. But before we get into the questions for our finals match this evening, I want to open up our 971 magnet giveaway from Wordplay All Day. Don't forget to either follow or subscribe to be eligible. And also a reminder to our subs that we will do this giveaway in just a bit as well. Tyler, what's the keyword that everyone needs to mash furiously into their keyboard to be a part of this giveaway?
Yeah, spam as many times as you can. Go ahead and type in Autobot. Autobot in the chat. Doesn't matter if it's caps, not case sensitive. Just type in Autobot as many times as you can to get a chance to win the 971 sticker, magnet, which is what we have up on the screen right now. We'll be giving that away in just a few minutes, so stand by.
Mash. All right, so our first questions for match 3. It comes from Dominator 2480. I think that's Team Teddy's. Is that right, guys? I think so. and this is really a generic question here. What's the most stressful experience that you have had, or you've heard of someone else having on a drive team, and maybe how have you guys done it differently? Now that we're, being armchair quarterbacks today, looking back on it. Any thoughts?
I've got one that I think about quite frequently. So I was fortunate enough to be a driver for Team 1503 in 2011, and we were playing on Einstein with teams 25 and 217. And in match one, we were the only team who was scoring on the rack, and we matched 254 and 111 on the rack. We lost the mini-bots, so we lost the match. And in match two, we got hung up after placing our second tube on the rack. And one of the things that we didn't do is we didn't communicate well enough with our alliance that we were stuck. It was kind of obvious in front of us because we were hung right in front of ourselves, but 25 and 217. 217 is getting smothered by 970 through this match. So they're focused on trying to get out of that. They're being defended, and 25 is kind of left to their own devices. And the stressful part really was we're stuck and we froze. We didn't communicate at all. So I think a lesson that I've taken away from that match is no matter what, keep the communication lines open between the alliance. It's not three individual teams trying to win themselves a match. It's a whole alliance. And that has rung with me ever since.
Karthik, you have a story you'd like to share?
Yeah, I think in 2008, this was 1114's first ever time on Einstein, and we'd had some pretty high-profile exits, in years when everyone thought we would be going to Einstein prior to this. So we were definitely feeling the pressure, and we had a great robot that year. And coming into Einstein, I think we'd won 34 straight matches going between champs and the Toronto Regional. So we're feeling really good, and we're paired up with 217 and 148. So we got Paul Copioli back there, so we got and John V. Noon. So two of the best, coaches of the world supporting us. And in the first match, 217 tips over, and they're blocking the lane, and so we have to drive through. Not 254. 217 tips over. They're blocking the lane with their arm. Paul tells us just to drive right through their robot, so we snap their arm, and Pink in 968, who was a 254 clone, just demolish us that first match. It was oh my God, it's all going wrong. We have this dream, and we think we're about to, pull this off, and it's all, and we had to pull the entire alliance together while 217's repairing their arm, and just figure out, what should we try and do something differently? And then I remember Paul just being dude, we're not doing anything differently. We're going to do what got us here. And just coming together and remembering hey, just because something went wrong doesn't mean you have to deviate strategy. You can sometimes try and bring things back, and we did. And then, we rolled from there. So it was intensely stressful, where you think that this dream is all coming together, especially when it's your first time on Einstein, and then it all seems to be falling apart. But then having the experience of Paul to just kind of be no, guys, everyone chill, we're going to make this happen. And, we did.
That's one of those stories that always ends with happily ever after. I have one that didn't, and this wasn't one that happened to me or anyone that I know that closely, but this past season when 125 was playing in the round robin, the MC called for drivers behind the line, and their driver threw up on the carpet right there,
Yep.
Which how would I have done that differently? I probably wouldn't have thrown up, but it was that's about the most stressful thing that I've heard happen to anyone. But it really, harbors back to a point we've been making, is how stressful it gets back there and how exhausting it can be. It was probably dehydration, because these days are just so long and you have so much going on back there. We got another question from Caltran. As a drive coach, what's the absolute latest that you would be comfortable with changing strategy? Is that point even on the field, or is it before the match starts? Nick?
Well, it kind of depends on the situation, right? Say you've planned out and you think, so for Steamworks, say you planned out where you're going to get a gear in auto, and your opponents are going to get a gear in auto, and you know that you're going to be matched, right? But your plan is, okay, I have a robot that can score gears, and I have a robot that can score balls, right? And my plan is I'm going to score gears for the match because I know that I'm against, say, a lot of gear scoring. And my alliance partner or myself didn't get that gear in auto. So now I'm down 20 points in auto. I have to switch what I was doing. I was going to run gears. Now I'm going to go grab a hopper and try to make up the difference in fuel. It definitely depends on the game. I think Steamworks lent itself to a lot of these on the fly strategy changes you had to do, because there were certain random things like drop gears or autonomous modes not working, that would prevent you from being able to run your plan A strategy. So that the lesson there is really having a plan A, B, and C prepared would prevent you from having to do that in the middle of a match. So my preference is to not change the strategy in the middle of a match, because I've got my drivers prepped for they're going to do this, this, and this. But listen for my word in case something else happens. But it's okay in certain circumstances to change on the fly, because you got to do what it takes to win the match.
Karthik, anything different?
It's similar, because I think there's two different types of changing strategies. I think there's one that Nick talked about, like when you go to a well-defined backup plan that everyone knows about. And so I think it's important to go into matches with a couple contingencies. Hey, if this happens, this is what we're going to do. If this happens, this is what we're going to do, especially in the elims, especially on Einstein when you've been playing together for a whole day. And so I'm totally comfortable with those types of changes. But if you want to make a change to something that hasn't been talked about, to me, it depends on how big of a change it is, but most importantly, it depends on who my partners are.
Yeah.
I think in general, I'm going to be confident that I can execute a change with my drive team. And if I can't, I've probably chosen the wrong drive team. But with your partners, there's different teams. Some teams adapt well to change and others don't. And if you know a team well, you can feel comfortable kind of making a change. But I know I always get nervous when you see an alliance in the driver's box and they're all getting ready for the match, and they see their opponent do something different with their robot, like it's at a different angle or something, and you see one coach running around frantically behind there saying, and like those sorts of changes, unless you can clearly communicate it, because I think it's not the change that's the issue. I think that the change doesn't get communicated properly sometimes.
Yeah.
And like two coaches know what's going on and one coach doesn't. And when that happens, like you're running two different strategies, and that's where things get messy. So
And it can even be muddling, if you're just talking about a potential change, if X happens, we're going to do Y. And then all of a sudden somebody thinks we're doing Y regardless of X. And it can get dirty back there.
I like to have everything dealt with in queue before you start hooking up controls. Because once people are hooking up controls and lining up the robots, you don't know who's heard what. You always see the thing where like one coach will run out onto the field where the other coach is setting up the robot and whisper something in her ear. And then like, did she hear it or not? And yeah.
All right. So I think we've covered 3 matches. We've talked a lot. We're going to have a lot more to say later in the season as things go on. So great kickoff. Good pilot. Karthik, Nick, thanks for joining me. But before we go away, we want to give away some prizes here. Tyler, can you tell us who our winners are?
Yeah, let's roll for our winner for the magnet that's on the screen, and that is going to go to Meredith Novak. Congratulations, of course, from the new team just being formed, Lights Out, which is it 343? I forget which team it was off the top of my head.
323.
323.
I'm pretty
thanks.
sure.
Yeah, thanks, man. So brand new team coming out of the gate, and brand new prize for you coming straight to you. So congratulations on that. And then we have for our sub-only giveaway, which we'll be doing here in just a moment. I got to get our list of subscribers up. Not sure if they're in chat right now, but our winner for the sub-only giveaway is going to be Chemical Mace. Chemical Mace, congratulations. You are going to get the custom drawing from Wordplay All Day, which is right up here. So congratulations. Chemical Mace will reach out to you, and Meredith, we'll get in touch for your robot magnet. So congratulations, everybody. And thanks for supporting First Updates Now with your subscriptions and follows. We love it.
All right. Thank you very much, Tyler. That's going to wrap up our first episode of the FUNalysis. Let us know what you thought of the show. Talk to us on Discord, Facebook, or even Chief Delphi so we can continue to make the content that you guys are going to appreciate and the content that you guys are going to enjoy. We're really trying to do this to build the audience of people who love First and talk about more great things going on in First. So on behalf of myself, Karthik, and Nick, and our producer, Tyler, I would like to thank you guys all for tuning in, and thank you all for our moderators in the chat. We'll see you next time on Fun, and we'll talk to you then.
See you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.